Well, welcome again to anyone who just joined us. We are here for our AFT and APALA town hall, and it's a celebration, of course, of AAPI Heritage Month, but it's also an opportunity for us to learn about the different issues facing our AAPI community, address the anti-Asian hate, but also, of course, the labor of love, and to kick us off this evening, we are going to be hearing from AFT International President Randi Weingarten. But before we do that, I'm going to also introduce our panelists for this evening. So Arlene Inouye is the Secretary of the United Teachers of Los Angeles and also has been working on a AAPI multimedia textbook curriculum, which is a project of AFT and APALA. And we also have the director of the UCLA Labor Center and the founding president of APALA. There's so much more Kent really, I think, symbolizes for us, but those are two of his major roles, of course. And then we also have the co-chair with me of the AFT AAPI task force, and who is also a member of the APALA National Executive Board, and that is Tracy Lai. And so we are going to be hearing from the three of them soon, but we wanted to hear, of course, from our international president yet, but I think she might be running a little late from another event. So why don't we, in the interest of time, go ahead and start with our first panelists. So I'm going to pass the mic to you, Kent.
Thanks so much, Jessica, and great to be with our sisters and brothers from the American Federation of Teachers and APALA. And while we are celebrating the rich traditions and history of Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders within the United States, we also do need to talk about this critical issue with regard to a major spike in anti-Asian hate and anti-Asian violence that we have witnessed, especially during the last 3 years of the pandemic. And in part, it's important to understand that anti-China campaigns have promoted racist slogans and have encouraged anti-Asian violence. Our former President Trump called COVID-19 the China virus, the Wuhan virus, and Kung flu. And as a consequence, we saw a sharp rise in anti-Asian hate and violence during the last 3 years since the beginning of the pandemic. The most horrific, of course, was the murder in cold blood of 6 Asian American women who were gunned down in 3 different Asian businesses in Atlanta, Georgia in March of 2021. But the attacks on the Asian American community are also represented in attacks on some of our national figures and leaders. Congresswoman Judy Chu has been the target of racist attacks and accusations that she is disloyal, a very painful reminder of the ways that Asians historically have been victimized with a challenge that we are not true Americans. The mayor of Boston, Mayor Michelle Wu, has been subjected to racist attacks for encouraging public health policies, and she was derogatorily named the Mayor Wuhan. And our good friend Julie Su, who has been nominated for the US Labor Secretariat, is being attacked by corporate and right-wing forces. If confirmed, she will be the only Asian American on President Biden's cabinet. And we know that AFT has been aggressively supporting her candidacy, and we are counting on our friends in labor to step up to support Julie Su's nomination. We in the Asian Pacific American Labor Alliance are deeply engaged in the fight for racial justice, and we see it very much connected to other forms of racism and discrimination within our society. We see it as critical for us to build multiracial unity, to oppose racism and hate, and to understand that what is impacting Asian Americans also directly is related to anti-Blackness, the legacy of slavery and mass incarceration, the discrimination against Latinos, the history of genocide against Native Americans, and other acts of discrimination. We also think that it is critical as we fight for racial justice that we support union organizing. There is a national wave of organizing that is taking place, led in many instances by young workers and workers of color. We think it's critical to link it to the defense of women's right, and especially the right to choose, and to build Asian American political power, and to stop voter suppression. And finally, the rise in anti-Asian hate is also directly related to attacks on immigrant rights. And so this whole notion of Asian Americans being others and not true Americans is also very much connected to the hateful anti-Asian, anti-immigrant messages that are being advanced by national leaders and right-wing media forces. We, within the Asian Pacific American Labor Alliance, are doing a lot of great work to advance racial justice. We had a national racial justice hearing at the AFL-CIO headquarters with Liz Schuler and Fred Redmond back in June of 2022. We had 5 outstanding online workshops to advance racial justice in the summer of 2022. We organized a border tour to link issues of racial justice and immigrant justice, and 70 participants traveled to San Diego and Tijuana. And we are following up with hopeful plans of mobilizing AFT and NEA leaders to the border as well. We are helping to launch a national network of API and documented youth leaders known as Empowering APIs. We had a wonderful International Women's Day celebration on March of 2023, honoring our very own Arlene Inouye from the United Teachers of Los Angeles and Susan Minato from the Unite Here. And we just came off last weekend a powerful APALA Organizing Institute right here in Los Angeles. So these are all the examples of things that we are doing to build racial justice. There's one last very exciting announcement I want to make. We've been working for many years to advance the rights of undocumented immigrant youth. And just this past Thursday, the University of California announced through their regents that the University of California will be opening up employment opportunities to undocumented students throughout the 10 campus University of California system, including those that do not have DACA. This represents a national breakthrough in the fight for immigrant rights and immigrant youth, and we will be educating AFT and NEA members in the coming weeks about this historic breakthrough. I wanted to wrap up my presentation with a music video, which was first written by a good friend of mine, singer-songwriter Chris Ijima, back in the 1970s. He was a former law professor from the University of Hawaii, but it has been updated by contemporary Asian American musicians to specifically address the problem of anti-Asian hate. And I wanted to encourage you to please feel free to share. And so this is a music video on We Belong. We don't hear the sound, Albion. I think you have to add the sound. You have to enable the sound on the Zoom. Got it. Thank you.
I'm here, grew up on the shores of America. Open up shop, ran stores in America. Wash windows, clean floors in America. Only trust me with your chores in America. Just need one open door in America. Cried when we elected 44 for America. My family's here, fought wars for America. On TV, just a whore for America. I get the memo, this is your America. Take my money, tax forms in America. Take a food, charge more in America. Use a culture for decor in America. History that you can't ignore. America, I'm the leader I was looking for. America, never silent, keeping score. America, and it's time I needed more. We're still here, we're going strong.
changed. Since Vincent Chin, the difference just names. Xiao Jia Dao, Yao Sun Jia, know these names. Hyun Jung Sun Jung Young, we have names. Victims, silence, evicted from our lives, cause our skin is the color they love to villainize. But if it's food, movies, and women, they love to fetishize. But if it's COVID-19, then China virus. Fuck these colonizers, calling us outsiders. We built this country too, and they built it alongside us. One generation, two, generation three, to the young generation, you generate me. So T, Tayo, and and Chucky, and anyone that feels like a guest in their country, and everyone has ever lost a body to the struggle. No, you're not alone. I promise all of my people, y'all, we love you when we're here.
We're going strong, and we're getting tired of proving we belong. We're still here, we're going strong, and we're getting tired of proving we belong. Proving we belong.
I've washed the clothes, and these hands have served the food heaven knows. And my neck has felt the mob's rope and has been behind barbed wire. My arms have nailed down railroad track, our back has been for hire. And these hands have fought injustice and the soul is on fire. We belong to each other, magnitude and bond. Black feminist scholarship, indigenous songs belong at the center like ethnic studies. Be the Robin Hood and invest in us. We be living pleasure acts abundantly. Abolition is healing our suffering. Belonging our purpose to the ones in need. Cause if one ain't got it, ain't no one free. I speak from the streets of Lenape Ho King. All my relations need reparations. Power to the people, our disposition. Belong to the land with First Nations permission. Maktub, the word that was written when we decolonize. We belong to wisdom, the cry for liberty, the right side of history. Overstand the bigotry, it's never really finished. See you here, even when it's smoke.
We're going strong, and we're getting tired of proving we belong.
We keep holding on.
We're still here,
Even after all these
we're
years.
going strong, and we're getting tired of proving we belong.
We keep
Proving we belong.
Wow. Well, thank you so much, Kent, for sharing, first of all, just the facts of what we're facing in the AAPI community in terms of the continuing rise of anti-Asian hate and where that's coming from, but also really inspiring us with what we are doing about it and how we're working together to fight the hate through multiracial coalitions. And that's what we need to continue to do. And speaking of coalition and coalition builders, we are super thrilled tonight to be joined by the International AFT President, Randi Weingarten. For those in the AFT community, she needs no introduction, but just this week, actually, I've had a couple conversations where Randi came up and she has been described as the best labor leader in the country. Anyone who knows her knows that she's a fighter for public education, for the underdogs, the folks who don't have a voice, and has been courageous in so many different ways. And so we're really grateful that she's here, and also really grateful of her leadership and support in helping to make the AAPI community more visible. And that includes, under her leadership, the creation of the AFT AAPI task force. So thank you for being here. And again, we're just so thrilled to have you and so deeply appreciative of everything you do for all of us.
Thank you, Jess. And I am sorry that my, this is, you can tell those of us who are not digital natives. So my Zoom link didn't work, and I went through and tried to get a whole new password on this because I only use the Gmail Zoom link. So my apologies for being late, but that's the persistence that you all have and that I tried to have to get on here. I also want to say to Tracy and to Kent, and particularly to Arlene and to Jess, the last month has been quite something in terms of the attacks. And there are people like Arlene and Jess who really reached out to me, and just like we all do for each other, just to say, I know I'm a big bag national president, are you okay? You know, it's really tough. And that's part of what unionism is. And I just really want to say thank you again, deeply thank you again. Not only did we survive, but you know, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. And so in the last few days, we sent a message back to that, to those extremists. And we said, nope, you get what is appropriate to get, and you don't get what's not appropriate to get, and you got to stop bullying us. And they blinked. And then today, we basically went after them and said, you cannot change public service loan forgiveness. You cannot pretend that what you're doing in this CRA trying to take away the Biden student debt relief, you got to tell the truth about what we're trying to do. And we actually blew the whistle on what they were trying to do, which was to take away, to basically retroactively rescind public service loan forgiveness for the last several months. And what it did was it pulled together, frankly, all the Democrats to vote against the CRA. And that is part of what we're trying to do, which is we got to fight for what we need, fight for dignity, but also every single day we're fighting to make sure that people are really and truly respected. And that I'm so, I lead in with that because I'm so proud of all of you and of us having this forum. Yes, it's near the end of the Asian American, Native Hawaiian, and Pacific Islander Heritage Month. I'm going to try to say that fast, but more important than AAPI month is what it represents. And too often, those of us who are not AAPI don't see people who are. And I'm going to go back to something that Arlene said to me several months ago, which is that we need to see everybody. And we can't just say, you know, people of color. We can't just say, let's make sure that we fight for the vulnerable. We have to actually see everyone. And every one of the rainbow of who we are as educators, as people, are really important. And what happened during not only the Trump administration, but it happened, and we just saw those pictures, during the Roosevelt administration. The level of discrimination and antipathy towards people who are of AAPI descent in this country has been real and enduring. And it shouldn't simply take that horrible acts of violence that happen in California or happen in Atlanta for us to say, stop, we have to do something about this. And that's why what was in some ways the origin of both the task force, but the origin of tonight's town hall. Hate is real. And we can't hide from it. And frankly, look, I'm a gay woman. I could hide my identity. I'm Jewish. I could hide that too. You can't hide it. And when we have to be out there proudly, not just fighting hate, but proudly supporting identity. And I think that that is what this town hall is about, both the ensuring that all our communities fight hate, fight not just the rise of gun violence, not just the rise of hate writ large, but fight anti-Asian hate and the targeting of Asian American communities. But we also have to celebrate joy and have to ensure that identity is not simply the fight of what's bad, but the celebration of who we are in every way we are. And so, yes, I want to do a moment of silence to honor lives lost, whether it was in Allen, Texas, or whether it was in Atlanta, or whether it was in Southern California. But I also want to say, as deeply and as humbly as I can, let's find ways that we celebrate the AAPI community. We lift up who we all are. I often think about gay pride and how before marriage was legal or we had any rights, how we used to dance on the streets of San Francisco and dance on the streets of New York City. And how we said, we're not going away. We are here to stay. You're not taking away my identity or my pride or joy in it. And that is also, as I said, one of the things I want us to do. I want us to find ways that we not only fight hate, but we as the AFT find ways that we teach other communities about AAPI, love, celebration, significance, and identity. So, yes, let's do a moment of silence. But as we do that moment in silence, let's think about joy as an act of spiritual and political resistance. May all their memories be for a blessing. So ultimately, you, Jess and Kent and Arlene and Tracy, and frankly, all the members of the AAPI task force, you got a big job to do because there's a lot of ignorance around the nation. And part of what I want to do is I want to take between now and the next convention. And I want us to make sure that at the next convention, we have a celebration of the AAPI community. And we teach people about what it means. And we teach the celebration of identity. So that is part of what I would like us to do, in addition to all the list of issues and policies. I want to make sure, Arlene, we never make that mistake again.
Thank you so much. I mean, I was writing down some of the things that you were saying, honestly, because they're such important messages, just thinking about, it's true. So much of the history we learn sometimes is about the struggle, about what went wrong, right? So whether that's, Japanese internment or Chinese exclusion, et cetera. But you're so right, though, that there's so much to celebrate. And we have to have that joy. And, what are we fighting for if we can't celebrate the joy of our community and our own identities and be proud of our identities? And so we are just, again, so grateful for you and your leadership and just appreciate you so much, and helping to make us visible and helping to, share our stories and share our histories. But again, remembering the joy and the love and celebration, as you shared. So
fantastic.
And honestly, I don't even think you meant to do this, but that was like the perfect segue to Arlene's presentation.
Fantastic.
Because everything you said about, the opportunities to share the history and make the culturally relevant curriculum available that's inclusive of the AAPI community, that's exactly what Arlene is working on. And so she is up next and is going to share a bit more about that work.
Fantastic.
Thanks,
everybody.
Thank you, Randi, so much.
Thank you, Arlene.
Thank you, Jessica, for that introduction. So yeah, I'm just going to pick right up where Randi left us and talk about first this term, sometimes we say Asian Americans, Native Hawaiians, and Pacific Islanders. Sometimes it's just Asian Americans. Sometimes it's AAPI. So it can kind of like, what does that mean? And it does reflect the history of our immigration and how we have been expanding the number of Asian countries represented in the United States. And this is just to remind us that there's great diversity. And, there's Central Asia, East Asia, Native Hawaiians and Pacific Islanders, Southeast Asians, South Asians, and even West Asians. So the group has grown. I think typically the first immigrants to this country, we think of Chinese and Japanese and then Filipinos, but as you can see, it's great, way beyond that. And our ancestors, we are generations in some cases, and sometimes first generation, but there's a lot of diversity and a lot of different languages spoken and a lot of various cultures. So this is just to show that representation of that term. And I do want to remind us that we were born out of struggle. We were born from the 1960 student movements, the Black Power movement, the Chicano movement, and Native American. And the term Asian American came from at that time. And it was really key where we started identifying with each other and in a broader way than in our specific groups. And I just want to point out here how it's, as a Japanese American, I have in my youth been called the model minority, and how not understanding at the time that was really a wedge that was used to denigrate Black power. And so I think we have to really understand that we're all fighting together to have visibility, to fighting the oppression, the racism, sexism, classism in our groups that we're experiencing uniquely in some cases, but also very commonly in terms of a white supremacist culture. And, today we have anti-woke bills, right? Laws being passed. We have travel advisories for Blacks and LGBTQ in Florida, for example. We have book bannings. And there's so many different these kinds of attacks happening right now, and a law being passed in relation that's similar to the Chinese Exclusion Act in terms of not being able to, the alien land law, not being able to own land, and the attacks on immigrants, right? We see various kinds of attacks that are similar to what we've seen in history, and the same kinds of groups that are being erased and marginalized and being oppressed. And that I just want to make sure that we always connect our fight together with these four disciplines that that comprises ethnic studies as the four marginalized groups that we constantly need to lift up. It's not just about AAPIs or Asian Americans or whatever you want, whatever that category is. It's about all of us together, not only fighting for our democracy and for a better world, but we also are fighting together for, in some cases, for our survival, right? It's a life and death matter as well. And so I wanted to lift that up. For the next slide, I just wanted to share just a little bit of my story. And it's just one example, again, of the broad, colorful history of the Asian American, Pacific Islander, Native Hawaiian community. I am third generation Japanese American. My grandparents came over in the 1800s, like 1860s, 1880s. So that's why, I was, quote, very Americanized. I don't know Japanese. I grew up hearing, where are you really from? And you speak English well, which was pretty typical in the 60s. And my family was all incarcerated. And the picture on the right is the picture my grandfather drew of Manzanar when he was in camp. And I lost, for example, I lost an aunt who contracted tuberculosis, and my grandmother had mental illness and she really was never the same after that. Those are the kinds of stories that we've experienced in our family, but a lot of it mostly was silence, right? Silent trauma that we felt, but we didn't know what it was. So I grew up, and this is my picture on the left that I like to use because it shows that I wasn't really a happy little girl, but it shows, I don't know, maybe anger or something. I'm not sure what exactly the emotion that you could see there, but I grew up feeling like I was different. I wasn't accepted. Remember the community, the Japanese community and the Asian community at that time was very small. So we were different. We were alone. We were isolated for the most part. And the feeling that I had, though, I want to share with you is I shut down at the age of 5, right? At that picture, I made a choice to be the good little quiet girl because I thought that's how I would be loved and accepted in this country. And it played a huge detriment to me. But what concerns me today is that I'm hearing the same thing from young people. Young people are feeling that they have to be perfect, that they have to be grade A students, that they have to be good at everything. It has not changed over the years. And they also, I had no history of my people or AAPIs at the time that I grew up. It's the same today for the most part. People across the country are not getting Asian American studies. They do not know the history. They do not know the cultures. They do not know the political context, even though now with China being the focus, we see the same kind of rhetoric, right, that we've seen in the past with Japan. So the next slide, I want to just go over this curriculum that I'm really excited about because this is the first of its kind. It blends scholarship with educators putting together a curriculum that will be free to K through 14. So specifically high schoolers, there are some states now that have high school graduation requirements for taking an ethnic studies course. This could be used as one of the disciplines, the 4 disciplines: Asian American, Black studies, Chicano studies, and Native Indigenous studies. Those are the 5, and Asian American and Pacific Islander studies. So this is through UCLA, Asian American Studies Center. They were given $10 million by the state of California to develop this curriculum. So it is there. We have a staff of around 20 working on this right now. We have 50 chapters. It will be fully launched January 2025. Now it's being tested out and we're getting licenses because it's a multimedia, multi-platform textbook, which is very exciting because you can click on things, get more information, you can get primary sources, you can get videos. Kids now are engaging digitally, right? Yeah, you can go through the, thank you for that. You can go through, you could see that this is the approach. It is historical scholarship, curriculum development, a dynamic online platform, school textbook adoption, and teacher capacity building and training. There will be professional developments linked to this. So this is what I think is really going to make a difference for people like all of us who are growing up and need to know who we are, need to know how the political forces, the historical forces. And so this is the phases that we're in. Karen Umamoto and Kelly Fong are the directors who had the concept, the vision for this. And I'm excited to be put on board as an outreach advisor. And we're going to take it out for this summer. We'll be at the AFT Teach 2023 conference, sharing a workshop about this. We will be at the APALA conference, and you will hear more about this. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Arlene, not just for sharing some history, but honestly, your own personal story too. I think oftentimes when we read about the textbooks, we forget that actually there are so many of us today who have actually experienced that history. And I think one thing that's really important that you shared too was just the lack of seeing ourselves in the history textbooks, right? And that's why this project is so incredibly important. And it's not just, I think, in historical moments that we have oftentimes been invisible, but even honestly within the labor community itself, which is why it's so important that people like our next panelist, Tracy Lai, have been working on the visibility of AAPI workers and leaders in the labor movement. And so we're going to hear from Tracy about some of the work that she's been doing. But thank you again, Arlene, for everything that you're doing as well.
Thank you, Jessica. Wow. Given what the speakers before me have shared, I need to just add a little something that's not even on my slide. And that is, I want to just share the example of ways in which AFT and APALA have worked together to kick off Asian Pacific Heritage Month. Here in Seattle, AFT, as part of their Reading Opens the World campaign, gave 1,000 books to White Center Heights Elementary School, which is in White Center, the home of Cambodian, Thom, and other Southeast Asian communities. And it was a fabulous and joyous event. This is a school that is over 30% Asian, majority immigrant of all different kind of backgrounds, and they had never seen so many books, 1,000 books that were passed out at their cultural night. So I just needed to share that in that spirit of we celebrate the joy, we celebrate our labor of love. All right, pulling back to my real slide here, I want to take us back to May 1992, and I want us to think a little bit about how the Asian Pacific American Labor Alliance came together, because it was a daring, daring act. And to help me, we're going to see a few minutes of a video that AFL-CIO put together about that founding.
On April 30th, 1992, several hundred Asian Pacific trade unionists met in Washington, D.C. to form the first national organization of Asian Pacific American workers.
We've had a situation where 40% of all recent immigrants are from the Asian Pacific region, and we need to make a home within the AFL-CIO for those individuals. A lot of them are being exploited in garment factories and in other places of work, working very long hours, low pay.
The implication and condescending treatment Ward's Code imposed upon us was very belittling. I resent the fact that not only was I considered a second-class citizen, but a second-class worker. I was enraged by the fact that my rights as a human being and a worker were disregarded.
It feels really, really good after over a century to finally be here within the House of Labor. Several hundred of us strong, meeting together to form an Asian labor organization.
Your participation in the founding of this alliance is a resounding message to workers everywhere that the trade union leaders of today and tomorrow recognize and understand the changing nature of the workforce.
The convention adopted organizing the unorganized into unions, especially Asian Pacific Americans, as a primary mission.
If you're interested, you can certainly see the rest of that video, or you can consider buying a copy of our book, Asian American Workers Rising, APALA's Struggle to Transform the Labor Movement. This is a book that's a collection of oral history interviews with founders and activists within APALA. And it's those voices collectively that I think tell so much of the story. So I wanted to note, once again, AFT has been very important. In our book, we have featured leaders, including our own moderator, Jessica Tang, one of the panelists, Kent Wong, Arlene Inouye, as well as Sue Kunitomi Embry and Marion Tom from New York. Sue was from LA. As well, I would be remiss if I did not acknowledge how important AFT was in providing some of the initial money and continuing to give many resources that allow persons like myself to become as involved and to become as acquainted with the labor movement overall. And for that, I am ever, ever grateful. Next slide, please. So this is at a glance the priorities of APALA. I'm calling it the organized voice and our organized visibility. We have as core strategies, organizing, as you already heard about in that short video clip. We always work towards the representation of workers' voices, AAPI workers' voices. And we always try to promote and develop, as Kent mentioned, organizing institutes where that representation transforms into leadership. We continue to work on educating, whether it's producing things like this book and other kinds of outreach resources. On National APALA's website, there are racial justice toolkits and things that any local, any union can implement, and we are all about activation. Next slide, please. On behalf of APALA, as National Secretary, I call to order APALA's 6th. We're going to restart that. This is from our 2021 convention. And we just wanted to take a little bit from Jillian, who was one of my co-national officers, and the president then, Monica Tamarath.
London, I'm the APALA treasurer and co-chair of the APALA DC chapter and a member of AFSME. Like Kim, I'm also excited to connect with you, and I love to keep learning from and working with you to strategize what's next. This past year, while I was able to work remotely, thousands of members my union represents were essential workers who had to show up day in and day out to provide for the communities that we serve. While the rest of us stayed in to stay safe, they were out there risking it all because they are committed to the work that they do and the communities still needed them. But I come from AFSME and I organize with APALA. I know it's not just up to me, and that power comes from taking action together. And because we kept organizing and fighting, not only did we increase union membership in the public sector, we fought for a fair shake for all essential workers and working families to pass crucial federal stimulus legislation. We need to continue funding frontline workers and everyday people because the pandemic isn't over. And our communities are long overdue for real and equitable economic recovery. I'm here and I'm ready to dream big with all of you. And now it's my honor to turn it over to President Monica Tamarath for a warm welcome to the 2021 convention.
Thank you, Sister Jillian and my fellow officers for helping me usher in APALA's 16th biennial convention. Hello, everyone. My name is Monica Tamarath, and I am the president of the Asian Pacific American Labor Alliance and a proud appointee of the National Education Association. This year's convention theme, Rooted in Legacy, Reimagining a New World Beyond Borders and Across Oceans, encapsulates what we all are called to do in this moment. Root ourselves in the legacy of AAPI workers We come from a lineage of dedicated peace workers who oppose war because of how US imperialism has devastated our homes. This year is the 76th anniversary of the atomic bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. And let's not forget that the US invaded the Marshall Islands and the homes of our other Pacific Islander siblings to test nuclear weapons. As a child of refugees from Laos, this one hits close. It's been less than a generation since the American war fractured Vietnam, Cambodia, and Laos. Our fights have always been about racial discrimination and displacement from our lands. I am proud that APALA's work is rooted in anti-racism and fighting for Indigenous sovereignty and land. It is a particularly special year to root our legacy at APALA, as many of our founders.
Thank you. I hope that makes you want to know more about that 2021 convention, but I also want to transition to thinking about this year's 2023 convention because it's going to be held in Seattle. And our Seattle chapter is really excited about this because we have not hosted a national gathering of APALA since 1993, an organizing convention. It wasn't a regular convention, it was an organizing conference. So we are really excited, and it's my job to try to get you interested in, and as soon as you can, figure out how you can be with us and encourage your other coworkers to come as well. Our theme is Workers Rising Together, and it's certainly building from 2023. We are certainly, we continue in the spirit of solidarity. We are the solidarity of the work that we have internationally, globally, as well as in our local campaigns. My next slide will kind of help me bring the rest of this together. Why should you come? Well, because it's amazing. It's amazing, and you want to be part of this organizing effort. Every APALA convention, beginning in that first one, 1992, has always had some kind of an action. And it could be with a local campaign, it could be with a national issue or an international issue. We always have a space for young workers and young leaders. One of the images on our screen, Did You Eat Yet?, is a zine that was produced by the undocumented API young folks. And you want to come and get your own copy and meet people. There are certainly regional and national activists, and there are plenaries to learn the what is new and what are strategies, what is something that AAPIs in the labor movement can do about these issues. And to me, that is always so inspiring and motivating. Please, please tell your union they need to sponsor you. You need to come as part of a delegation, and I look forward to seeing you here in my hometown, Seattle. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Tracy. I think that, we have a few call to actions here. So one, definitely please check out the Workers Rising book. It's really inspirational. And I think that, folks like Kent have really just paved the way for AAPI labor leaders, but so many people don't realize that there's AAPI labor leaders, right? Sometimes when you think labor leader, the image that pops in your head is not necessarily an AAPI face, right? But that's got to change, because there are, as you saw in the video clips, so many AAPI workers who are an active part of the labor movement and really need to be seen. And not only just to be seen, but also to find community. And that's what APALA is. It's really, even to this day, the only national AAPI labor organization. And if you're like me, you know, when I became president of the BTU, I felt pretty lonely actually. And when I went to APALA, I realized, oh, this is my family, this is my community. These are the folks who really understand what it's like, and where I can, you know, again, not just struggle, but find support and love and joy, right? So please do join us in Seattle. We'd love to see you there. And before we go though, we do want to just see if there's any questions from the audience. And so if you do have a question, please raise your hand and we'll unmute you so that you can ask your question. So are there any folks who have a question? And if I don't see questions, I have some of my own too. So I can, oh, we do have one though. So Gladys, please.
Hey, hi, thank you. Thank you for taking my question. And thank you for putting this together. It's really good. And nice to see you again, Kent, even in camera. Hi. Listen, I just want to know if you can please share the link for the video. It was really, really good, really inspiring. And yeah, I mean, it's very powerful. And also the link for the other book, the scene book. Also share that as well, please, if it's possible. And thank you for putting all this together. Very informative. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And yes, we would definitely want to get the resources out. Part of the point of having this town hall was definitely to share that there's so many resources that can be shared. And again, if you know folks who are in unions, please do invite them to the APALA conference so that they can learn more about the community and everything that is there to support them as well. Edna, we'd love to hear from you.
Oh, are you able to hear me?
Yes, we can.
Jessica? Okay, awesome. So my name is Edna Cortez and I just joined, and I love Tracy's energy. So I just joined the APALA, the chapter for Seattle and Washington. And I am with the Washington State Nurses Association. Actually, I'm on the cabinet. And if there is anybody that would like to talk to me about it, and then I'm hoping that WSNA or the Washington Center for Nursing, I'm also on the board of directors for that. And if somebody is looking for somebody to need help to sponsor them, please let me know. I would love to talk to WSNA and see if they would love to sponsor, or, you know, I would like to help sponsor as well, but I am planning to go in August. Yes, August. So yes. I will be there, but you know, I'm just so happy to meet Tracy and be part of that group, and just her energy. And the book, I have to tell you, I just finished the book a couple of months ago and it is fabulous. So, but thank you so much. It's an honor to be part of this group.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for your incredible support too. So I think we'd love to get your contact information, and we would love to connect with you. Ligaya is part of the Seattle chapter and the second vice president right now. And I know that she would love to be in contact with you too. So if you don't mind sharing information with us, we will definitely be in touch. All right. Do we have any last questions? If not, I am going to ask each of our panelists just to give kind of a 30-second takeaway of what does API Heritage Month mean to you? Why don't we start with Kent?
I think that this is a really critical year. We see all across the country more organizing, more workers' struggles, and more campaigns that are engaging and being led by Asian American workers. So this is a great time for APALA, for the American Federation of Teachers, to work together, to mobilize within our communities, to build power, and to fight for a better future. And so I hope everybody can join us in Seattle for our APALA National Convention.
Thank you, Kent. Arlene, you want to go next?
Yes, I feel like we live in a precarious times, and yet I feel that solidarity is what's going to carry us through, and that there has been divide and conquer, there has been separations, but as we come together and fight against the oppressions, fight against the attacks, fight for a better world for all of us, I feel hopeful for us all.
Thanks, Arlene. And Tracy, last thoughts?
Yeah, we are in an urgent moment, and I feel from this town hall and other gatherings, we have the power. We just need to do all the things, to organize, to lift each other up, and we will get even farther than we think we can. So I am very hopeful about what we can do together. See you in Seattle.
Thanks, Tracy. Arlene, Tracy, and Kent, just personally, all three of you have been incredible, not just leaders, but honestly, friends, mentors to me as well, and definitely inspirations. And so it has truly been an honor to learn from you and be a part of this panel with you all tonight. And you all have such incredible legacies in your contributions, not just, I think, to our AAPI community, but the larger fight for racial, social, and economic justice. So just very deeply appreciative of you all. And also want to give a super big thank you to Inouye, the executive director of APALA, and also Cesar from AFT as well, who really did the legwork to help put this panel in the evening together as well. All right. Well, thank you all so much for joining us again this evening. And, as Randi Weingarten shared, I think we all need to remember to celebrate the joy of our identities and who we are. And I believe she said it's an act of, spiritual existence. And, it's true. The struggles are real. The harms are real. The hate is real. But we've got to celebrate each other and celebrate the joy and celebrate who we are. So joy is an act of spiritual and political resistance. I got that wrong. Thank you, Alvina, for helping me out with that. But please have a joyful evening, and thank you again for joining us.